For almost 10 years, he had enjoyed being a fixture in the San Diego gay community, a charmer who talked big and partied hard.
Andrew was a showman. He had a story for everything. He had a hellacious little laugh. It's somewhere along the lines of a belt of a hyena, perhaps getting poked in the rear with a pin. We'll give it a ha 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 ha, you know, but a lot more crazy than that.
But as he headed towards his 30s, Cunanan was faced with more beautiful younger men fighting for their place in the social spotlight.
As Cunanan progressed into his late 20s, he realised he was slightly over the hill for the gay party scene.
Cunanan's fall from grace began really when he's dropped by one of his richest benefactors, and now people were rejecting him. They were turning their back on him. They were starting also to not believe all of his lies.
He had this underlying insecurity, compounded by an act that he had that wasn't working for him anymore.
Cunanan was feeling increasingly isolated. He may have had a wide social circle, but he had few true friends. To make matters worse, Jeffrey Trail, someone he was particularly close to, had moved from San Diego to start a new life in Minneapolis.
Jeff was well-liked in the community. He was witty, bit dry humor. I could see where he and Andrew were close friends.
Closely following Trail to the North Star State was another of Cunanan's ex-lovers, David Madsen, the one he called the love of his life.
Dave was an architect. He had a nice demeanor. It was all-American. Kellogg's cornflakes box, grin, quite an easy-going, good guy.
Cunanan felt abandoned. He saw the friendship between Trail and Madsen as the ultimate betrayal. The happier they seemed, the angrier Cunanan became. He wanted a confrontation. Cunanan prepared to leave San Diego by holding a final get-together with his friends, an event that has since been dubbed the Last Supper.
Andrew had a very unique personality. He was quite a grandstander. He was one to leap up from the table if anybody should join the table, introduce him with first and last names. He was a gregarious individual. He would always insist on being placed in the front room, which looked out onto the street, so that he could see and be seen.
The usual life and soul of the party was uncharacteristically subdued.
It was not a typical showman's dinner table. He didn't leap up, he didn't chase people around. He was soft-spoken, thoughtful, contemplative, perhaps. Befitting of the occasion.
Cunanan claimed he wanted a new start. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. April the 25th, 1997, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Cunanan arrives from San Diego for a weekend stay at Madsen's apartment. Madsen picked him up from the airport.
Many people were concerned and warned Madsen that Cunanan didn't seem himself. He said that he just needed to sort himself out and needed a place to stay.
Jennifer Weiberg was the caretaker of Harmony Lofts in Minneapolis, where David Madsen lived.
I actually encountered David Madsen and his friend that he introduced me to, who was Andrew. Andrew was non-responsive. David seemed rather irritated that he was being so aloof. I saw this kind of puffy guy with a attitude that I can't see how or why anyone would ever have been impressed with him or wanting to hang out with him.
Sometime on Sunday the 27th of April, something had finally pushed Cunanan to the point of no return. Bitter with betrayal and driven by jealousy, a vicious argument ensued between Jeffrey Trail, David Madsen, and Andrew Cunanan, with fatal consequences.
Cunanan found a claw hammer in that apartment and started bludgeoning Jeffrey Trail. Following this attack, Cunanan calmly rolls Jeffrey Trail's body up in a rug and pushes it unceremoniously behind a sofa, as if no one would find it.
Some spree killers who are killing in a state of frenzy aren't interested in hiding the evidence.
After 2 days holed up in the apartment and with no apparent plan of what to do next, Cunanan fled the gruesome scene with Madsen.
Cunanan's spontaneous murder of Trail happened so quickly that Madsen was unable to comprehend what had happened or to even intervene. That's the kind of thing that psychopaths are able to do with their powers of persuasion.
A few days later, Jennifer Weiberg received some worrying news.
Tuesday I came home and there were 2 messages on my voicemail from co-workers of David Madsen, and they were very concerned because he had not shown up for work and people were looking for him. Knocked on the door. David, David, are you in there? Are you in there? And no sounds. So I did have a master key and I opened the door. It was horrifying.
She didn't know it at the time, but what she had discovered was the beginning of one of America's most famous spree killings.